Hi, my name is Joe Wright and I'm the guy responsible for the content of the UKIE Country Kits for Civil 3D in the 2019 and 2020 releases. I've authored another video that covers the basics, but this short video is aimed at an existing user who has used the Country Kit previously. The first thing to notice is that all the Country Kits now have a lot simpler method of installation using an MSI installer. This means that for standalone installation, it should be a simple double click to add the Country Kit. This format is also great for deployments and pushing installations out through group policy. Also, it can be uninstalled, which means if anything is accidentally deleted, then a reinstallation is a good quick fix. As with every release of Civil 3D Country Kit, a lot of improvements have been added to the template file. In this release, a good number of new styles have been added, with a focus on improving labels and annotations. Wherever possible, the older replace style will still remain. It's prefixed with the word legacy, so it's still available. The template continues to build on the Uniclass 2015 layering system, and the latest version of the British National Grid coordinate system is now fully supported. You pretty much notice straight away when you look at the tool palettes that there are some nice new icons for some of the stock sub-assemblies. Those with the flashy new icon have been redesigned. In many cases, they've been redesigned from scratch. These new sub-assemblies give you access to lots of geometry that were previously hidden. To help you along the way, each comes with comprehensive documentation. The older sub-assemblies are not gone. They're still available in the tool palette in a section labelled Legacy Sub-Assemblies. A lot of work has gone into improving the pipe network catalogues, and a full set of structures now exist to mirror those found in the Sewers for Adoption manual. Not only does this give you a pretty extensive parts list, but you'll also find style sets and pipe rules to ensure you can get the most out of the new catalogues. Also, there's a very cool inventor-based chameleon catalogue that supports connectors. So grab a cup of tea and make yourself comfortable, as what follows will showcase many of the improvements in the 2020 Country Kit. Okay, so to start, we're going to pop up to Scotland. You will notice that the new British National Grid coordinate system is the default in the UK template, replacing the older trimmed variant. There's a shortcut here on the tool palettes to set this in third-party drawings. Okay, so here's a chunk of land. A few styles have been added. This one, for example, gives you a border in 2D and shows triangles in 3D. By the way, the border is no longer visible in 3D in any of the styles. A lot of people reported graphics issues with 3D borders in the 2019 release. The solution? No border in 3D. Some of the styles have been updated. Contours, for example, pretty useful in 2D. However, a lot better shown as triangles when in 3D. Oh, and whilst we're on contours, the default labelling has been changed to ensure only one decimal place. It just made sense. There we go. A little better than the 3 decimal places that it used to show. Wherever I found a label that incorrectly used station instead of chainage, well, obviously that's been fixed. Here, when I label this alignment with the chainage offset label, it now displays chainage rather than station. If you find any more of those, let me know and I'll change them for the next release. The profiles were changed in 2019 to allow all geometry change points to be marked on band sets. Look, over here you can see the vertical and horizontal geometry changes are marked with ordinates and the levels are shown on the bands. This does involve ensuring Profile 1 references the design profile, whilst Profile 2 references the existing ground. Now this is the opposite way around to how it used to be in 2018. But it does mean that all geometry points can be selected or deselected as needed. The default is everything selected. If you would like it to default to everything deselected, then simply import the legacy band set so that it behaves as it did in 2018. Okay, And here you can see that the legacy band set defaults to everything deselected. You still need to ensure that Profile 1 is the design and Profile 2 is the existing ground to ensure that the levels are correctly sampled, but there you go, just like 2018. You may have noticed that I have a start of a corridor in this drawing, generated from a simple assembly made of a curb and a footpath. Well, actually it's two corridors because I'd like to show off some of the sub-assemblies, and to keep it simple and to aid visualization I've split the assembly. As I mentioned, all the new sub-assemblies are shown with a crispy new icon. Let's drop a new detailed carriageway in, and we'll just ensure that the crossfall is in the correct direction in reference to the curb. As the anchor point here is clearly not the crown, we will need to swap the codes around. That's simple in the properties sheet. Now, specifying the code as no codes inside those chevrons will ensure that a code is not assigned to the point. Now, this method is used extensively in the new sub-assemblies and allows us to expose a multitude of codes without generating a mess of unwanted geometry. In this case, I've removed the code from the crown, as the next sub-assembly will also have a crown, and you don't want the two on top of each other. Okay, let's add a new channel block. Notice a dished option is now available on this sub-assembly. All the new sub-assemblies are fully documented. Simply right-click the sub-assembly on the palette and choose Help. You can see the options exist in this sub-assembly to control the dimensions of the concrete backing. These variables are available on the properties sheet, and simply referencing the documentation will point you in the right direction to changing what you want to change. There you go. Set these to 0, so now I can add a curb. Again, fully documented. I know the old CHM format is a little antiquated, so all documentation is repeated in PDF format, which is a lot easier to print out if needed. The location of the PDF is shown inside the CHM, and they're all in the same spot. In this case, I'm going to merge the two concrete backings, so it's this variable I need to change. So just make a note of the variable name, go to the properties sheet for the subassembly and change it. Done. A new Waterline Offset option has also been added to the British curves. This gives you control of the offset from the insertion point to raise the curve slightly. We'll use this again later, but for now I'll just raise it slightly to match the channel block. Okay, I'll quickly add a footpath, but you will notice that all the old variants of the new sub-assemblies are still listed on the tool palettes in the legacy section. So if you want an old edging complete with its built-in trip hazard, no problem. This also means that your older drawings won't have annoying red circles on, as the older sub-assemblies have all been retained. Let's get rid of that and put a new one on instead. And look at the documentation again. Notice the availability of a custom option as well as the standard designations. This means you can overwrite the default values to anything by choosing custom and altering the custom parameters. You know what it's like. You often find a subassembly that's so near to what you need, but then it's limited by design, and that can be very frustrating. Maybe you're a landscape designer who just wants to put a quick vertically mounted flagstone on his corridor to show a planting area. Right, let's look at the original curves and pavement and talk about codes. The documentation shows all the codes available to you. The important ones tend to have an understandable name, like top of curb and surfacing level. But some are a little more obscure. For example, when we have a waterline offset value, the code KC2 will be exposed and can be referenced. These are all listed on the properties sheet. But first, let me add a waterline offset to this curb so that the KC2 point is available. As I mentioned, all the point codes are found on these property sheets. The common ones will be preset. The more obscure ones, or ones that often connect to other geometry, may be set to no codes inside those chevrons. This can soon be changed. And of course, with declared codes set like this, they can be shown as a feature line, which is useful to us in many ways. The results here will be more obvious if I switch the corridors to no display. And yeah, maybe I'll turn off the aggressive black shaded background too. And there you go. You can clearly see the feature lines that have been made from these codes that we've exposed. And let's face it, when we come to making a corridor surface, don't we just get a better all-round surface by using feature lines made from the codes rather than the links? The nice crisp lines and edges with controllable transitions just give you something that's crisper and nicer. I'll make a surface for the road too. Now that I've got these surfaces in place, I'm going to copy the original assembly. And on this copy, I'm going to change the curb designation on the property sheet to a bullnose variant. Essentially, this is going to be assigned to a section of the corridor to form a drop curb. All I do, find the region, put the new assembly name in there. There we go. Altering the waterline offset will of course raise the curve slightly through this point, and it's something that we can get quick and easy feedback in the drawing. Nice. So, to summarise, the new assemblies offer you a lot more flexibility than the old ones, and because they're well documented, they're a lot easier to use too. Right, let's change tack and move on and take a look at pipe networks. Now, quite a lot of work has gone into improving the UKIE pipe network catalogues in this 2020 release. The major tick box here is that there is a new structure-based catalogue based on the Sewers for Adoption version 7 book. You can see the two new parts lists here in the template, one for clear water and one for effluent systems. The older parts lists are still available. They're listed as legacy parts lists. If you add a new parts list, you can see the older geometry is indeed still available. But look further down the list and you'll find the SFA 7 parts. It's worth noting the figures in brackets at the end of the part, like B.18. While these reference the actual sections of the SFA book that the geometry has been based around. This means it's quite easy to reference the part you want to use. Just open the appropriate page in the book. Whilst I'm here, I'm going to add an extra part to the SFA 7 Storm parts list. This simple frame box was added in 2019, and because I didn't document it, I don't think it's being used, so I'll show you how this works later. For now, I'll just add it to the parts list. Let's create a new network. Let's make it an effluent or a foul network based on the SFA 7 foul parts list. We can choose a suitable inspection chamber for a back garden. Again, the designations can easily be cross-referenced with the appropriate sections in the book. Let's position these in the gardens. Then, when we get to a driveway, we need to change tack and put in a more suitable structure capable of supporting a light load. There we go. And maybe, in the visitor parking area, we need to choose a heftier structure, suitable for a bin wagon to roll over on bin collection day maybe. Now I'm going to follow this alignment using transparent commands and put some larger manhole structures in place. A type 2 here and here. And at the end I'll choose one of the big guys. Totally unsuitable for such a small scheme, but let's put one in anyway. As you'd expect, they're all in 3D. Let's look at the small inspection chamber at the bottom. The Sewers for Adoption book offers a choice of concrete surround for these guys. Simply examine the property sheet, change the wall thickness, and voila! You can cater for adding that concrete sheath. Let's quickly bish bash bosh a profile out. I've speeded the video up a bit here. I'm not that fast. I'd like to focus first of all on the pipes in the garden. They look quite deep in the profile view, and this is due to the rules assigned. But because we don't have bin wagons driving over gardens, the cover level can be less. So choosing a different rule seems sensible. Here you can see I can assign a no vehicular access rule to this pipe, which means it is happy with a smaller cover level. I can of course assign this rule to all the pipes in the gardens and assign other appropriate rules for the driveway and the hardstanding area. In this case, the driveway is not accessible to large vehicles and the hardstanding will have only limited access. This means I can reapply the rules to get the most out of these new constraints. Happy days! Right, I'll just quickly tidy up the profile and then add a couple of extra branches. Standard stuff. To do this, I'll just edit the pipe network and choose the additional pipes and structures that I need and join them up to the existing system. We'll put an extra one down here too. Now let's declare these as non-adoptable. As you can see, there's a few extra styles so your network can match the 2D aspects of the SFA document. I'll repeat this process for the other structures I've added, which is essentially just changing the style of the object. I'll also spend a second tidying things up a little bit, getting everything rotated correctly, and maybe replacing the big guy with something a little bit smaller. And there seems to be runaway sump down there. Look, I'll just apply the rules to that to fix it, and then we're away. I'll speed the video up again and draw a storm-based network. Similar technique to before. Note that the storm parts list still contains the gullies everyone liked, and these pretty much worked how they used to. The null connectors now have a new style, which is a simple cross in 2D. I don't know about you, but I just like to see where a pipe break is, so it made sense. The original null style is still, of course, available if you prefer to use that. Remember, I added a part called Simple Framebox to the Storm parts list earlier. Well, here it is. It comes in one standard size, and as described is just a simple box. The beauty of this is that the dimensions are controllable on the part properties sheet, so you can change it to any size you want. You can change the length, the height and width accordingly. You can also control its cover level, so you have a mechanism to add an underground chamber or an odd-sized part when you want to show something like a petrol interceptor and the like, without having to go to town to draw up the 3D geometry. Whilst this is very simple and it technically falls outside the SFA standard, I found it a very useful addition, as it can take on any size you want quickly and easily. Okay, all these parts have been designed in the traditional part builder environment, so adding extra part sizes to the SFA parts is relatively easy for those who have used Part Builder before. But now for the cool stuff, because hidden amongst the part catalogues is a new chameleon-based SFA pipe catalogue. This offers structures that have multiple connection points. I've already pre-built a parts list in this drawing, and as you can see there are other types left to add. Just let me add one more type with a single designation, style to show the underlying geometry and plan. Now, let's draw a network based on this parts list, in a very similar fashion to how we did before. The idea of multiple connector points comes into its own with eccentric structures, as the connection can be either at the centre of the part or directly underneath the cover. We'll discuss that in a minute. To help with this, and as before, I'll add an inappropriate big guy at the end. At this stage you can see that the geometry is a lot more detailed than the part builder stuff. They were, after all, originally designed in Autodesk Inventor. Some useful additions have been added to this geometry. For instance, notice the grooves towards the bottom of each part. They represent the invert and the soffit of the maximum recommended nominal pipe diameter for the structure from the SFA book. Let's look closely at the connector points. One represents the centre of the part and the other is linked to a point directly under the centre of the cover. This becomes very useful to get an accurate cover level of the structure. Let's push out a quick long section. And in this case, you'll need a very keen eye, but notice that the cover grade is offset from the part centre. But because of the extra connection point, the cover level is spot on and is not calculated from the centre of the part. I also think these chameleon parts work a lot better with this declared connection point at the invert of the structure. Moving the pipes in sections just seems to behave better than the part builder equivalents. Of course, the big guy at the end has a minimum size, so it can't be dragged smaller, and the connection point is ignored, which is good. Whilst out of the box there are only a limited number of designations for each part type, you can use the Infrastructure Parts Editor to add more variants and more sizes. Let's open IPE and have a play. Firstly, you'll find the catalogue in this location. Basically, it's in your Documents folder, then Autodesk, then Chameleon. But hey, stop. Don't play with the original. You will probably screw it up. Just make a copy and play with that. First thing you'll notice is that each part has been designed with contrasting colours so that the part details stand out. If you're not familiar with the Infrastructure Parts Editor, there are 3 sections to an assembly: the top bit, the middle bit and the bottom bit. Everything is driven from the middle bit, which we call the surface structure. Let's make a copy of an existing middle bit and add some sizes. The next thing to point out as you proceed through the wizard is a little graphic that lets you know the variables used to control this part. These are best displayed as column heads. The ones you need will have little asterisks next to the variable name, and if you hover over them, they'll offer you some help, and of course if changed they'll resize the specific component. In this case, the diameter of the green concrete collar. Adding additional designations is easy. Just add more rolls. The CG diameter links to the diameter of the cover grate, and in this case brick courses determines the height of what's between the frame and the concrete collar. I'll come back to SS height in a second, but SP diameter will determine the diameter of the underground chamber, and riser height is the thickness of that green concrete collar. How the SS height variable is declared is important. It has a doubled asterisk next to it. Now that should mean you don't have to worry about it because it is a calculated value. But if you don't fill it in, then this part will fail to publish to Civil 3D. So look at the rollover tooltip, get your calculator out and fill in the value. Let me use the power of speeded up video to fill in another column. Clicking next will allow you to preview each part. You might need Inventor Viewer installed to see this, but it gives you a quick heads up. Something went wrong. That concrete collar is far too small. Let's fix this by going back one level. Yep, I put 100 in instead of 1000. Final check. Yep, that's cool. Now we can join this to the top bit and the bottom bit by creating an assembly of the parts. It will list the components you can join up with your new surface structure. In this case, I'll have a square cover and a plastic underground chamber rather than a rigid one. Then once again, the Inventor Viewer should click in to give you a preview of each part. Once this is complete and you are happy, you can publish it to Civil 3D. I'll simply push out a new catalogue containing only this part so we can test. Done. Meanwhile, back in Civil 3D, I can change my new structure catalogue to the new test one I've just made. then generate a parts list and draw in the new parts. Let's have a peek at what we've made. These chameleon parts are very new for 2020, and the chameleon link is still being developed, and we will begin seeing many more improvements to how this type of catalogue can be used in Civil 3D. Anyhow, I hope you've enjoyed this video. More importantly, I hope you enjoyed that cup of tea. I'm closing up now. My name's been Joe Wright. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video.